Love listening to your favorite station? Start getting rewarded for the things you already do, like streaming your favorite radio station online. It's easy. Go to cbslocalrewards.com, sign up, and start earning points for listening to your favorite online CBS radio stations, reading articles, and viewing photo galleries on your local CBS website. Redeem your points for great prizes and gift cards from stores like Nike, Best Buy, and Amazon. Sign up today at cbslocalrewards.com. That's cbslocalrewards.com.
Sports podcasts on Play.it are brought to you by DraftKings. Sign up for daily fantasy sports for cash.
The wait is finally over. Baseball season is here at last, and the excitement continues all season long at DraftKings.com, the official daily fantasy partner of Major League Baseball. Daily fantasy means no season-long commitments, just instant cash, instant gratification. Why wait until the end of the season to claim victory when you can win huge cash every day? At DraftKings, it's like a brand new season every time you play. Just select 2 pitchers, 8 position players, stay under the salary cap, and you could be on your way to an enormous payday. Last year, Peter from Colorado won $1 million at DraftKings in one day, just playing fantasy baseball. Hundreds of thousands of fantasy sports fans just like you have already called in at DraftKings. Now it's your turn. Woo! Hurry to DraftKings.com now. Use promo code FLAIR to play for free. You could win part of the $300 million in prizes being awarded this season. Use promo code FLAIR, Flair, for free entry now at DraftKings.com. DraftKings.com, that's DraftKings.com. Woo!
A man who wears the 10 pounds of gold, the nature boy, Ric Flair.
You know, I always like to take this opportunity to talk about myself. Woo! Woo!
The 16-time heavyweight champion has arrived.
I've got the style and profile like never before.
The greatest talker in the history of the business is behind the mic once again.
You're talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, limousine wreck, jet flying, son of a gun. Woo!
This is Wooooo Nation with Ric Flair.
I'm the man. Ric Flair. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ric Flair, 16 times your world champion, with my good friend Conrad Thompson, hosting a show called Wooooo Nation, the #1 podcast on CBS. And our guest today is the legendary Mick Foley. Mick, how are you, man?
Hey, Rick, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. As soon as I saw you guys are #1, I felt like it was a Monday Night Wars all over again, like pressure.
Yeah, no pressure.
I don't want to be the guy who sinks the ship you got going on.
I got
great,
three. I got three. I got Cactus Jack, I got Mankind, and I got Mick Foley.
Well, we'll be okay, I think.
Yeah, we will be. Good deal. Listen, Conrad has got, I introduce him this way every time. He knows more about wrestling than Dave Meltzer.
Oh, my gosh.
I told Dave Meltzer that. So he knows more about the history of our relationship and the business than anybody. So he's got questions, and you and I can talk and have fun and just, digress all this and remember the night that we stole it in the garden at Wrestlemania 20. Which we did. I know the triple threat match with Benoit and Hunter and Sean was the main event, but you and The Rock against me, Dave, and Randy was a highlight for me in the garden of any match I've ever been in.
You know what's so interesting, Rick? It's like you guys were like, I looked out and you were in the zone, and I got scared that night. I really did. And I felt like I came up short that night. I felt like everyone in that match delivered except me. So it's funny how we see it two different ways. And it was Stone Cold who came up to me after the show, and he was looking. He wasn't staring at me, but he just kept looking at me, like glancing over. And he finally came over. And he goes, "Kid," he goes, we known each other a long time, right? And I said, yeah. And he goes, you consider me to be a straight shooter? And I said, yeah, of course. And he looked me right in the eye, and I never forget it. He goes, you dropped the ball out there tonight. And so
really?
It's funny how we look at it. It was a heck of a match.
Yeah, you and I were talking in the hallway afterwards, and I said, of all the stuff I've ever done in the Garden, Mick, that this was the greatest thing I've ever had. The Rock, and I'd only been in a ring with The Rock twice. And the first time I was so nervous, it was in Greensboro. It was terrible. It was 3 minutes long on Raw. And then we got this six-man tag or this handicap match at WrestleMania 20. And, man, Pete Rose was sitting there, Trump was sitting there, and Rose texted me, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna have to go back and revisit it. I've always been afraid to watch it, and I've had people tell me they thought it was great, and I'm busy.
Well, we were
talking to Nature Boy Ric Flair. Sorry, I'll go back.
What is that?
Somebody's at the door. I'm not supposed to answer the door when I'm talking to the Nature Boy. Rick, I'll revisit it.
Is that a maid bringing your room service?
I thought you. Yeah, somebody's coming to clean the room or something, but it can wait.
That was my story.
I thought everyone delivered on that match except me.
No.
And I just,
you're desperately
I knew
wrong.
we had, because you know what? If you remember, that was like the 12-week build-up in 2004. We had that great storyline, and you guys from Evolution were treating me pretty rough every week. Like, we really built that, and Rock came right into the rescue, and I just felt like I brought my B+ game and not my A game that night.
No,
but that's really flattering. If it was,
no, I'm telling you, of all
event at the Garden,
of all the stuff I've ever done in the Garden, and I really didn't wrestle that much. I wrestled Hulk, and Roddy, and trying to think, a Hunter there. I mean, I was never really the main event, even in the last 7 years that I was up there, from 2001 till 2008. So, I wasn't one of those guys that Flair's coming, the Garden's going to be sold out. I mean, we did good, but that wasn't, I really, I got to start working there, later in my career, and that my demographic was stronger in the Southeast and the Midwest at that point. You know what I mean? So they knew who I was when I first got there, but it wasn't like, man, we got to get a ticket a month in advance. Flair's coming to town. I never felt like I was a big card there. Does that make sense? But with you guys, yeah, it does. Yeah. And the history of you guys and the 20th anniversary. I mean, and The Rock was Rock. He was on the fire that night. With all his stuff. He was. And yeah, you were doing. You did I think you did the people's elbow. Of course I did. I'm the first to tell. This is what I will say though, and I tend to downplay stuff that I did, and you very seldom catch me saying too much about what I accomplished. But and this is something that people don't agree with, but I'll go to bat and say that I felt like our match was as important as whatever anyone wants to consider the main event that night. I thought that the work we put into building that match and the interest it had was made it as important as any match on that card, regardless of where they put it on during the card. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it was a classic three bad guys, heels, against two of the most over guys in the history of the company. And you want to hear something funny about that is when I got a call from WWE and they said, how would you feel? Because, I had this thing going with Randy where I'd walked out on a match, and Randy spit in my face, and then I came back at the Rumble, try to redeem myself, and I got a call from WWE saying, how would you like to work, with The Rock against Evolution? And I stopped and I said, well, I heard The Rock would only come back if it was for something big. And he said, well, he thinks this is something big. And that wasn't a knock on you guys. I honestly didn't think Rock considered working with me
to be a big deal. Like, it really changed my perception of our friendship and relationship completely. The moment I heard that, I was like, really? Like, I never thought that he, thought of me in that same, rare air, with the other guy, the other top guys he'd worked with.
Yeah, no, I think he thinks the world of you. I've known him since he was 12 years old. I didn't get to spend much time with him in the business, but he's a pretty genuine guy, and I mean, I know that he had a ball that night. We talked about it, and when I see him now, we just periodically at Wrestlemania once a year, we still talk about that and how much fun it was, and talking about a guy who's taken off. How about The Rock? He'll be the main event again this year. What the heck? Well, you and I are sitting home, and he's still main eventing. They can't make it without him, man. Jesus.
Nobody saw that coming. People ask me, was I surprised by his success? I'm like, I think everybody's surprised by the level. Like, I knew he was going to do well. I didn't know he was going to do that. Like, nobody could have predicted that. It's like I run into people who will say, they give you an indication how well he's done. Like, they say something about Dwayne Johnson. I say, I remember when I used to wrestle with him, and they go, he wrestled? Like, he's so over that he has fans that aren't even aware that he had a life previous to Hollywood.
Yeah, it's amazing. I don't go to movies, but I went and saw Hercules, and I love that. And then I went and saw Fast and Furious 7, the last one, and I mean, he's in a different level.
What's funny is, his daughter and my daughter are friends, and so my daughter will say, Dad, don't be surprised if you see The Rock tonight on Raw. Like, when it's an utmost secret, the way they're doing these things, which I love, the idea that you're not there, hanging around catering and talking with the boys, that when you come out, there's that element of surprise, and I think it, translates, like, if the guys in the back are surprised, and it doesn't have that feeling. I think you share that with me, that when you go out and walk through a segment, it just feels alive. And so it's funny that my daughter will have the inside scoop. And then my daughter just met Ashley or Miss Charlotte, your daughter, at Mania, and they hit it off. So we have these multi-generational friendships going on.
Now, how old is your daughter?
She's 21.
Is she at NXT yet?
No, she's like on the fence. She really wants to do it. She was doing some training.
Keep her home.
Like, as a dad,
keep her home.
I don't want to see her walking like me.
Keep her home.
And honestly, the way the women there have changed the game makes it so much.
Hey, let me tell you, as a father, and I know how sensitive you are with your children. I was different with my boys than I am my girls. But with my girls, you never want to see. Number one, you don't want to see their feelings get hurt. Number two, you don't want to see them getting beat up. And I go through, because my daughter will do anything, as you know. I mean, She wants to do the kind of stuff. She would jump off the cage like you did with Taker if they told her to. I mean, she's crazy. And I mean, it makes me think that I'm so proud that she's not afraid of the challenge in that. But that NXT division down there is a whole different animal. It's completely different from what the people have seen on Raw. Completely
it's amazing, different. And I hope they get the. I'll tell you, it's funny because there's this perception that you and I don't like each other. That people in the business, and it's weird because Terry Taylor one time told us, in the only instruction he gave us, we did the promo, is he said, you and Rick go out there and do that thing between you that only you guys understand.
You talking about WWE now or TNA?
This is back when we were with TNA, and then we went out there with only I just said to you, Rick, I'm going to challenge you to a match, and you said, Mick, I'm going to say, from what I've seen, you're a pretty good father. You ought to keep it that way. And then I said, and make me work for it. And you said, don't worry, I will. That was it. 10-minute segment. That's all we knew. We went out there. We had the ability to make that magic happen. But I think what people don't understand is, every once in a while there'll be that that message, Flair Foley message, or a message I send to you. And I wanted you to know a few weeks ago that I was at that match in Philadelphia, and I thought it was a historical match because it was the first time, even though Trish and Lita had main evented a Raw, I'm pretty sure there would have been a dark match on after that. I think it was the first time that women had main evented a WWE show, and I was there, and it just took me back to when I was a fan. Like I wasn't watching as a wrestler. I got to watch it, at ringside, and I was rooting for the both women's, your daughter and Sasha, and man, they came through. And so I texted you. I wanted to know like how proud I was of her, and it was just it was a great. I mean, I thought it was a great moment for the business to see the two of them out there, and to see how Philadelphia can be kind of ruthless sometimes, right?
Please.
I thought, man, that was my only worry was, are they going to accept it? And I made sure that I looked out at the crowd, when the main event was announced. Everyone was into it. No one left. I watched, I listened, and the crowd was great. They were really creative. And at the end of the night, everyone was standing. No one was leaving. Like, it really was for me. I mean, and I'm not just saying it because you're the guy I'm talking to, but it brought me back, to my favorite matches of all time. Like, as a fan, was like Snuka and Morocco in '83, and you and Steamboat in the Meadowlands. And I know you could probably point to a dozen or more, probably way more, that were better matches. But for me, that was the first time I'd seen you guys live, and as a WWE fan, I didn't realize the difference. It's almost like what you're saying with the NXT women and the Raw women, and they're like, you don't even know what's out there. So when I went to the Meadowlands that night and saw you and Steamboat put in, I think, 48 minutes that night, I was like, wow. I had no idea that this this is a game changer in the same way that watching your daughter and
Sasha
Natalya was a year ago.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Natalya. Yeah. God. Well, it just, I'm so proud of her. I can't thank you enough for sending those texts and that, because she's so hard on herself. It's just amazing. She has been her whole life. She just used to being number one, and this sitting on the bench doesn't work for her. You know what I mean?
No.
Yeah, she's a shooter, and she's learning how to work. But that makes sense. When you could have gone to college as a Division I athlete in 4 different sports, and you choose volleyball just because you liked it better than the other 3. Track and field, cheerleading, and what was the fourth one she could have gone as? Track and field, cheerleading, and what was it?
Basketball?
Volleyball and basketball, yeah. She couldn't stand basketball, but she could have got a Division I scholarship. And I said,
that athleticism shows, man. She's great. And she's so nice, she thanks me for the nice things I say. And I looked, I said, I appreciate that, but you have to say, I'm not saying it to be nice.
No, we all try to. The thing of it is that I can't tell her. I mean, I can only reaffirm what I see and know, but it's never enough. So anytime someone of your level, Shawn Michaels talked to her at WrestleMania. He went and watched she and Sasha work in San Jose at an NXT show, and Shawn talked to her and said to her and Sasha, if I was a guy on this roster, I'd have to really take a long look at myself. That's how good the match was. The two of them have got phenomenal chemistry, Sasha and Charlotte. So.
Yeah. They really do. And then bringing it back to what you asked me, my daughter is like, 3-4 years ago, I would have thought, yeah, she could be a diva. There's not that much that goes into it. You go out, it wasn't that much expected of the women for a certain period of time. And now, man, they have really raised the bar as to what the women are expected to do. So, man, congratulations!
No, thank you. I know you have.
Achievement.
I know if you have her number, text her again.
I will. I'll see her today. I'll tell her we talked.
Yeah, great. Well, listen. I'm being facetious, really, but it's a lot for a father that really understands the business and the politics. God, forget about the the traveling and the insane schedule and everything else, but the politics are so rough. And it's hard when you're a father that knows the business not to have an opinion, and secondly, not to voice it because, you know, social media is so bad now, I could never say anything. You know what I mean? I certainly can think it, but I can't say it.
I know. Yeah. And, you know, I can understand your frustration because she's been ready for a long time. Yeah. And my son asked me, I'm kind of just out on the road with him, which is kind of cool. Like, we just took off and went to see the NXT show, and then we were on vacation in the mountains of North Carolina, and we looked at our GPS as to how far it would take us to get back home. It was like 11 hours, and I said, "How far is it to Orlando?" 12 hours. Let's go down to that show. So we're just kind of traveling about and really enjoying ourselves. And he asked me.
Oh, did you go last night?
I had a chance to see it, and I'll check out the tapings tonight. And I thought, she did. Yeah, she did a great job last night. Fun tag team. And it wasn't that, it wasn't meant to be the epic match that that she and Sasha had. Yeah. But she's going to have several epic matches in front of her. But my son asked me, he's like, "Dad, why do you care? Like, why do you care so much? Like, why am I always promoting the women?" And I said, well, listen, buddy. I said, like I love the idea that people get it. That people know me, and essentially, I still make my living off of being an ex-wrestler. I do my shows around the country and, appearances. I said, but as far as like making a difference in the business, like I don't really get a chance. I love being out there and doing the 1 or 2 promos a year or whatever I do on Raw. I said, but, I feel like I have a chance to speak up and draw some attention to the women's division. And it's never just one guy, but, if it's me, and then it's Shawn Michaels, and then it's you, and then it's Hunter, of course, who's making so much of this happen. Like, eventually, like it's like a snowball effect, And so I feel like that's part of my job, is to get that word out and let people know what I'm seeing.
Well, I know it's very much appreciated on her end and mine.
We'll be right back with the limousine riding, jet flying, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, son of a gun, and Ric Flair. Woo! On Woo Nation.
Love listening to your favorite station? Start getting rewarded for the things you already do, like streaming your favorite radio station online. It's easy. Go to cbslocalrewards.com, sign up, and start earning points for listening to your favorite online CBS radio stations, reading articles, and viewing photo galleries on your local CBS website. Redeem your points for great prizes and gift cards from stores like Nike, Best Buy, and Amazon. Sign up today at cbslocalrewards.com. That's cbslocalrewards.com.
This is Woo Nation with Ric Flair.
So is your daughter in school right now?
Yeah, well, she's she hosts a show. She went to school for a few semesters, and she's like, "Dad, I don't really think that's for me." And I was like, "Well," at that time, she was 20, and I said, "It's a long life, like she worked so hard for like 6 or 7 years. Every day she'd come home and do her homework for 5 years, and she graduated like a 3.9, and she just kind of like had it. Like she didn't enjoy it, so she just try some different things. So she's doing some modeling now, and she hosts a weekly YouTube show for called Ringside or Riot, and she's got her own she's got her own list of she's got her own fans. She really does. It's funny, she go to a show and I look over and like there's my daughter holding babies and taking photos.
Hey, without walking on you, but I got to jump on this for a minute because they're saying that acorns don't fall too far from a tree. There's one thing that Mick Foley and I will never agree on. He so overachieved in terms of marrying a beautiful woman. I've asked her several times in person if she just is working for LensCrafters or what the deal is. And your daughter is exactly just like her, my God. And I'm just trying to figure out, how can it be possible? Jesus.
The one that baffles me is Roman Reigns and Sika. Like that's the even more baffling one. Like, how did that happen? And it's funny because my wife will go out of her way, like she's
dropped dead gorgeous.
She's a big fan of Romans, you know.
As is Wendy.
Yeah, he's a good guy and so respectful, always has been. But you're going back to my family and wife. Yeah, you're right. And I met my wife in 1990 when I had, really didn't have very much, and we've done pretty well together for really good kids. Still, and that's the one thing you and I always had in common, even if we weren't agreeing about everything else. Is like we had that the love for the kids down.
Yeah, I mean, you did a much better job of staying married than I did. But my kids always came first. I love my kids. It was my kids, wrestling, and then wives were just somewhere else on the list. I think my boat was number 3. But now that's gone to my 4th wife.
Well, you know how we both did wife swap, right? And,
yeah, of course.
And I remember talking to both you and Roddy about telling you exactly what I got financially, what you could expect. And during the course of my wife swap, like the couple that we swapped with actually split up, like legitimately split up at the round table. And the guy's name was Antonio Sabato Jr. He's like this stunningly handsome guy. And when his wife or his fiance kind of took off on him, he said, "What should I do?" I said, "I think you need to apologize." And he said, "But I didn't do anything wrong." I said, "I know."
Well, that wrong? You know what? That's an argument you can't win with a woman.
Yeah.
So I just don't argue. I just don't show up. I just turn my cell phone off.
Admit you're wrong, even though you're not. And that's part of the secret of being married.
Yeah. Well, stay married. It's not. I can just guarantee you from afar that it's not financially. I would not advocate. Especially as long as you've been married, getting divorced for any reason whatsoever, because it's not financially sensible or feasible.
I would take that advice.
Yeah,
I appreciate that, Rick.
Yeah, I just should have stayed with 2. I was fine there. The last 2, Jesus.
You're listening to Woo Nation right here on Play.it. And our guest, of course, Mick Foley. You can check him out on Twitter, @RealMickFoley, or online, realmickfoley.com. Obviously, you guys have known each other a long time. But, Mick, I'm curious, when did you first meet Rick?
First met Rick, I came down to I was working for Continental Championship Wrestling, and they were about to fold. And I was just asked. I had been trained with Shane Douglas, and he told me I should just stop by the center stage tapings. He said it couldn't hurt, and it was like 3.5-hour drive from Montgomery, Alabama, where I was living, and so I came in, and some of the guys knew me, especially from the World Class tapes, because World Class was syndicated in about 120 markets. And it turned out, that Jim Cornette was a big advocate, and Jim Ross was a big advocate, and they introduced me to Rick. And the next week, or 2 weeks later, I had a tryout. It was kind of a tryout. It was a first match / tryout. I mean, when I saw my name, and I thankfully, WWE did a nice special on the last show I did, but I talked about the way I felt, and I walked into center stage thinking I was in line for a little bit of a push, and then I saw my name on the chalkboard against the Steiners, and I legitimately thought about leaving the building. Like I just didn't see the future looking very good for me. And it was then that, Kevin Sullivan said, like the line that saved me, like, "Brother, what's your finish?" I had no idea what he meant, because there was no way I foresaw me using a finish on Rick or Scott Steiner. And when I told him I dropped an elbow, and after Jim Cornette explained the elbow, Sullivan looked at me and he said, "Brother," He said, I don't care how badly Ricky Escotti hurt you. When that bell rings, if you're still conscious. And I remember specifically, he said, if you're still conscious, I want to see you drop that elbow on your partner. And so I did the elbow, and I came back, and Rick was in charge at that time, and he told me they were going to be bringing me on board, and he couldn't tell me what it would be, but it would be a pretty good living, and it certainly was compared to what I was used to. So that was late '89, first time I met Rick.
So Rick hired you for WCW, is that right?
Yeah.
Well, Rick was I was on the booking committee. I'm never gonna put it like that. It'd be like saying that Kevin Sullivan and I were telling people what to do. Does that make sense?
Right.
Wasn't Herd the boss then?
Rick, I believe, in my mind at least, you were the guy who brought me in.
No. I probably was, but I mean, I'm trying to think who was the boss, head of the company.
Probably Herd.
Was Herd still? I can't remember because I left about the time you were coming in is when I left, right?
But probably about 6 months after that. Yeah, but I left 6 months after.
Oh, okay,
so,
yeah.
I think you and I left about the same time, and then the next time I caught up with you was at your house in '91. I came over with Cornette. I remember seeing your kids playing out there, and they had a nice swing set. And I think they were like 3 and 4 or something like that at the time. And we were watching some tapes, and you just started with Vince. I think we left, about the same, within 4 or 5 months of each other.
Did you go to Vince the same time I did?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't get back in there. I didn't make it there until '96.
Okay, I'm telling you, sometimes I think back on this, and that whole thing with that era with Herd was. I mean, I don't know what was worse with her coming back and then the booking committee again with Eric. You know what I mean? Jesus. I'm telling you, the only way Jim Ross survived Herd was Jim would get him drunk at 5 o'clock. He would get the scotch in him, or he wouldn't have to listen to his bullshit, man. He was brutal. Man, when he hit me with that Spartacus and getting the earring thing, I was, God.
Oh.
Wow.
Who would have ever thought a guy like that could talk me into cutting my hair? Can you imagine that?
That's almost like when you go to Graceland and Priscilla won't let anyone see certain photos of Elvis. That's like that haircut for you, I think.
Thank you. No, I'm telling you, hey, it's funny because the worst part is I walked through the airport of Charlotte, right, my world, my home, right, and nobody recognized me
without the hair.
No, I mean, that's when I realized. That, it just killed me. And I remember this is like, Kevin always took off from me. He said, why don't you change Mickey Mantle's number? And, we need to change it around. We need to call him Spartacus. I turned down the diamond ring, but then I just said screw it and left. Yeah.
So, Mick, when you wound up leaving 6 months later, after you kind of got signed the first time with WCW, what was the reason for leaving? Was it you were unhappy with the booking or the payoffs or the direction? Or
you know what? I mean, I longed for the days when Rick was in charge, when Ole Anderson came in, and he just wasn't, I was happy. I was working with Mike Rotundo. We had a nice little thing, Rotundo and Norman the Lunatic, when there's me and Abdullah the Butcher, and then Kevin and I, were teaming up, and Kevin was like, I was happy. Ben, I was really happy with the push. I was happy with the money, and then Ole turned out to be the best thing that could have happened to me, because had he been a fan of mine, I probably would have had a little turn with Kevin, a little bottom of the middle type of fun little run, and that probably would have been it. But by Ole, Ole came in, I kind of read the writing on the wall, and even at that age, I was thankful for the opportunity, but I realized that wasn't where I wanted to be. 5 years down the road. And so, I gave my notice. I went out the right way and just really made it a point to work hard on trying to. My goal was to go out there in the independents and become a more serious character and try to steal shows. And I think that's what everybody should do when they leave someplace, especially if they're going to go out there, on the indies. And I had to, worked with some really good people. Eddie Gilbert was a great teacher. Had a chance to do a lot of matches with Eddie, and it's amazing what confidence will do. Like going back, Rick, when we were talking about your daughter, and I think that match that she had with Natalya was really good for her confidence.
Oh, for
and
sure.
like you said, she's hard on herself, and it's really helpful to when people, when you read things from people that you like and respect. And for me, having those matches with a guy like Eddie and starting to hear, get word that people were taking notice, that was a big help. So when I came back to WWE, like it had only been 15 months, but it might as well have been a lifetime. But I just had a completely different, approach, and confidence was the key.
So I've got to follow up on that, but Rick, we've never even talked about that. Did you ever do anything with Eddie Gilbert? Did you ever perform at all with him?
Oh, I wrestled Eddie before. Yeah, as a matter of fact, the thing where Steamboat beat me, Eddie was his partner, and who was my partner to go into that angle in '89.
I just didn't remember you guys ever crossing paths. That's cool. I didn't
Eddie Gilbert?
Yeah.
I wrestled in Louisiana when he was still living.
Okay.
For Watts.
Okay.
A couple times. Yeah, I knew Eddie, yeah. He was a real nice kid.
Yeah, I remember, unfortunately, Rick being right there when Rick got the news of Eddie's passing.
Yeah.
But he was a great, great mind, and I think, had he lived, he'd probably be in the business some respect, behind the scenes, helping out with talent.
What did he die of? Was it pills?
I think they were contributing factors, I mean.
Yeah.
I just seen a few months before that, and he seemed to be doing pretty good.
Yeah, I didn't know that was an issue with him. I guess that's what caught me off guard. I mean, when some of these guys, when I hear about it, if you're not involved, in that, and trust me, it's not because I'm not social. But I like to think that everything I'm doing is legal. Probably some of the places I've taken my clothes off isn't, but anything I'm consuming usually it's liquid and I'm paying for it. So, but I mean, the tragedy of all those guys. Well, hey Mick, let me flip this over to you and me, because I thought that another time we stole the show and really had I got to tell two stories. First of all, we're talking about Mick and I at TNA having that I Quit match, right?
Sure.
And I tell you, I've never been. One of the things that pissed me off more than anything I've heard is that so I'm wrestling Mick Foley, right, the king of hardcore, right?
Right.
So I'm always up for something that I know I'm no good at, right? It's like when I wrestled Edge. I'm in that ladder match. I never had one in my life. I'm 55 years old, but as the day you ain't gonna hurt me. I just don't know. I won't have any offense. It's a chop, a knee drop, and a woo, and that doesn't work in a ladder match. So it's them thumbtacks and all this shit. And what's the guy's name that wears the mask down there?
Abyss.
Abyss calls me aside and says, "Hey, you can't use thumbtacks." That's my gimmick. I said, "What'd you say to me, you stupid son of a bitch?" I was so offended by that.
Rick,
do you remember that? Do you remember that?
If you were to talk to Abyss and ask him about his biggest regrets, that saying that would probably be. Oh my God! I was astounded. Not that he was talking to me. I was a little flabbergasted that I was even in the conversation. But when he's telling Mick Foley he can't use thumbtacks, yeah. I'm going, okay, let me see, kid. You have drawn 138 people here at the Walt Disney Studios 10 times, and he's a nice kid. But sometimes he's a good worker.
No, and it got nothing to do with that. But
he'd use.
They get caught up in themselves once in a while,
Yeah. I mean, I remember being in Continental and asking a guy if he could not use, the leg drop across the midsection, where you have the legs parted, and I said, yeah, I've been kind of using that in world class, and I regret saying that, And that but look who you are. There's some people. I mean, people ask me about the figure four, and I say, guys, you're never going to beat anybody with it, but you can use it. Have at it. Hopefully, you got a better track record than I have.
Nobody, the figure four with Ric Flair on the other end has never beaten anybody that I can remember. A couple of guys on TV, but nobody knows their name.
Right. And the top rope, going to the top rope never really worked out too well either.
No, but I'll tell you where we did it. We're also, I feel like we stole it, and the WWE, but nixed you and me in interview time was the street fight we had at SummerSlam.
Yeah, that was one that
I took 17 blades for that one.
I was a little upset about the lack of motion behind that.
I said, roll me around in them thumbtacks. Nick said, you're crazy. I said, I have to be wrestling you. Just roll me around in them.
Oh, my gosh.
I had 17 blades on me that day, Nick. I mean, Mick, excuse me.
I'm a little worse for the wear. That one left some lasting marks. And we worked so hard during that match. I just remember that was part of and Vince is going to be right most of the time. I just thought he was wrong when it came to the importance of it. I thought that match was a big match. And I just
we just got cut short of interview time. We didn't get cut short in the match.
No.
Our interviews were magic.
And when we did have the interview, we knocked it. We had a heck of an interview, but I was like, "Where's the promotion for the interview?" Aren't they going to talk about the match? And it was just one of those things where Vince was on a different page, and he didn't see it as being as important as we did, or that I think most of the fans did. And I think it was just a missed opportunity. And then we went out there, and we had a heck of a match.
Yeah, it was fun.
Man, it was we went out there in the Meadowlands, and we had that great promo segment. I was just waiting, when something's a priority and when something's not, and in that case, that match wasn't a priority for the company, and I thought it should have been.
Well, at that point in my career, everything for me was a plus, and getting to work with you, it's like, if you think about it, I went there in 2001, right? I was never supposed to work. I still got the contract. You'll never have to wrestle. Okay. I wasn't there 6 weeks, and I was wrestling Vince at the Royal Rumble.
In Atlanta, yeah.
In Atlanta, right? And then all of a sudden, I'm getting to wrestle Taker, which at WrestleMania, which really was great for my self-confidence, because I wasn't ready to come back. I was too beaten down by then by the WCW stuff.
Yeah.
But I actually felt like I had a terrible match with Vince. I just wasn't ready. But I felt like Taker really. I mean, he did. Taker put me back on the map, man. When a guy that's 15 years younger than me throws me in a corner and I miss the flip, and he pulls me back and says, "You ready to try it again, kid?" I felt pretty good. I said, "Let her go, man."
That's awesome.
And he threw me in and gave me the boot, and that meant I could pull for the sword. By the time, if I can get to the sword, man, I can make it through it. Get me to taking the tape off my finger, and the rest of it I can handle.
You're listening to Woo Nation right here on Play.it. Of course, our guest, Mick Foley. You can check him out on Twitter at Real Mick Foley, and catch him online at realmickfoley.com. If you haven't had the pleasure of seeing Mick do one of his one-man performances in person, you should. I've seen it 3 times. It gets better every time. If you've never heard his Jim Cornette impression, that's worth the price of admission alone. And we're talking about all things old school WWE today, and I guess we should just go ahead and finally address the elephant in the room. Although you guys did have some really cool matches in 06, it probably was born out of a little real-life animosity. I know everybody's getting along now, but there was some back and forths in some books, and then backstage in Huntsville, Alabama, of all places.
That's where Conrad's from.
It got a little real.
It's the greatest line I've ever heard. I was sitting there with Iron. He throws down the book and said, "What's this all about?" I got up and punched him in the mouth. He no-sold it. And it was over.
Yeah, I may have no-sold it physically. Emotionally, it hurt.
Yeah, but if you're a guy throwing it, I don't feel the emotion.
Exclusive, Rick. When your book came out, and you and I had been getting along, really good. We did the evolution thing, and I didn't realize that like the receipt,
Sure.
the receipt was necessary. And
it probably wasn't, but they weren't. That was after my airplane incident, and they wouldn't let me get out or anything else. So I said I can at least give Mick a shot,
Yeah, I know.
Sorry. I said worse about Diamond Dallas Page.
WWE probably should have pulled us aside before any of that stuff, but I was like, I gotta address this somehow. I've never been a bully in my life, but honestly, in Huntsville, I went up. I mean, and I guess the intention was to make Rick look bad, in front of the boys.
So you're in catering when this happened?
He went to shake my hand. I wouldn't shake his hand, and I said, "You want to sign this book for me?" And I had envisioned a lot of scenarios. And never once did I envision Rick getting up and punching me. Like, that was never even entered my mind. And to this day, this is another thing. Rhino is the only guy who knows this. So until now, and Rhino has never called me on it either. But when they were pulling us apart, Rhino was the main guy holding me back. Let me just say, he didn't have to work very hard to hold me back because I wasn't actually trying to make forward progress. Rick's anger, it caught me off guard. Really, I never saw that coming, and I was like, what have I gotten myself into? So it was an unfortunate thing, but I said it was almost before that. We had this, this big boil, and we were trying to put a Band-Aid on it. And instead of, pretending it wasn't there, in that one day in Huntsville, we kind of lanced it and got all the bad stuff out. And
well, what started it all for me is, I swear, everywhere I went for about 3 years, people would say, "Did you read what Foley said about you?" And I said, "No, I never read his book. I mean, I haven't read a book since I was."
You didn't even read your own book.
I didn't even read my own book. Thank you. I barely look at my DVDs. I mean, okay, I was there. What's there to look at, right?
Right.
So, oh yeah, he buried you, right? He said you were a great worker, but a terrible booker. And I have always kind of, and it's hard to explain this, but I was at best trying to survive.
Yeah, I understand that.
And I was never really in charge. You know what I mean? I mean, if I was in charge of the booking, right, why would I do five deals in a row for Hulk and 5 for Randy in a row, back to back?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then 1 for Vader. I mean, everybody. I was just getting beat, And if I was the head of the booking committee, I don't think I'd volunteer myself to retire and get told I'm off for a year to go back in a cage match after getting beat twice with Hulk, right?
Right.
I mean, it made no sense. I mean, but was I in the booking committee? Yeah, just probably to making sure I still had a job. Because I was just, I didn't have that power. You know what I mean?
Right.
And the same applied when Jim Herd was there, I mean, I don't think anybody in the world would ever think that I would come up with a team called the Dingalings if I was the booker. Is that safe to assume?
Yes.
Is that safe to assume that I wouldn't come up with the Dingalings? Holy cow.
Rick, this is what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to edit that book and cut out any of the things where I mentioned the booking, and it will, because there's a lot of nice stuff in there too. There really is.
No, I know that's what people said, but I just was so offended that anybody to this day that anybody thinks that I was booking. I mean, I had just surviving.
You personally held down Shane
you know
Douglas.
what? My apologies for that, and I did mention.
No, Mick, please don't. I'm just making a joke.
The only 2 times that you and I had words, actual heated words when you were, in 1990 when I came on board, you went out of your way after on both those occasions to come back and say, look, this is why I said this. I didn't. You don't take it personally, and I don't know if anyone I've ever worked for has ever done that. Come back and explained why they were hot, and kind of apologized for getting hot. So, but it's kind of lent to it's kind of become legendary in status. And we both have a mutual friend, Sean, the announcer in Sean Grande in Boston, one of the announcers.
Oh, is he one of your buddies with Big Time Wrestling?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he loves you. I didn't realize you guys were friends. He's a good kid, boy.
Yeah, and he called. I was eating with him in Boston when you called. This is like before our match at SummerSlam in 2006. And he's just watching. I can see his face because when you and I talk, you know, we there's a lot, you know, mutual, not only respect, but we like each other, right? Like, I don't think that's what people get, is that we do like each other. And, like, I'm just looking at his face when I hung up. He was like, I thought you guys hated each other. And it's like, it's become such a part of wrestling lore that when people see us together and, you know, and laughing, they're always caught off guard. But as far as I'm concerned, you know, that, you know, we had our problems, but they're in the past.
Yeah, but if you look at it for what it is, you really can't. I mean, if you look at it, Mick, and I tell people this, I know I repeat myself by saying this, but in this business, if you can end up at the end of the day having 10, 12, 15 friends, it's a miracle. Because the business and the way the business is not run, but the way it creates ill will between people. I mean, the thing with like John Cena and The Rock, I still don't get that, but there's certainly a level of ill will over what I don't even know what caused it, but I've heard that something that Cena said at an interview when they were working a couple of years ago. You know what I'm talking about, Mick?
Yeah. Oh, about the writing of the notes and
or something like that. Yeah, I mean, and that caused some ill will, and then different stuff. I mean, we had Brett on the show, and Brett's mad at Hulk for stuff, but at the end of the day, life's too short. What are you going to do? I mean, we can't change it. We're all healthy, you know. I had a life-changing experience in my life, which I never saw coming. And, man, I mean, from that day forth, I felt sorry for myself for about a year. And then I said, you know what? I got 3 other ones that are dependent on me every day. You know what I mean? So I have to get my shit together. And, you know, it's kind of like Brett. I mean, I didn't bring this up to Brett, but I'm sure that, you know, losing Owen took a wind out of his sail too. Sure. I mean, it's a big deal when you lose somebody you're close to. It's unexpected. Does that make sense? I mean, it does. And since I think we're about to run out of time, if you don't mind, Rick, I'll end up with a story, you know, and I've written about it once, but it was one of the things I'll remember most about you is when we were kind of stuck with each other on a 14-hour flight, you know, to the Philippines. Oh yeah, and even like guys, you know, like Cena and Hunter are going, you guys want to switch seats? And we're like, no, we're going to be okay. You know, I was like, I don't know, how am I going to last 14 hours with Rick? And we said, no, we're going to be all right. And not only that, then it was like the next 4 hours. I think it was on the way home. It was because it was 14 hours or 16 hours, and then it was like the next 6 hours from L.A. back to New York. So we were with each other for over 20 hours. And I'll never forget, you know, Rick, that one by one you called all your kids and tell them that you love them. And you know, when you were done, I said, "Do you do that? Do you do that every day?" And you said, "Every day." You said, "Because you never know." And like that was before that happened with Reed. I call him 3 times a day now. The other 3. That's great. Yeah. That's great. But that was that's what I take. You know, it's my first number 1 memory. Well, they were worried that I was going to force you to drink. Not that we wouldn't get along. Mick's another one I've never been able to coerce into drinking.
Well, if there was a night,
Mick avoids me like Kurt Angle does. Maybe later, right now. Not yet. You never say never. But that's what I'll catch you. I'll get you in a week. 26 years. Not yet. What do you say? I said, we've known each other 26 years. You haven't coerced me yet. Yeah, I know. You never say never. Well, okay. Well, listen, we'll let you go. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you coming on the show. You're entertaining. It's going to be, I've got to come and see your show one day. Conrad lives in Huntsville. And so Conrad has seen you in Huntsville. Where else?
Yeah, I've seen him in Huntsville, seen him in Chattanooga. I've seen him at the Wrestlemanias. I mean, if you're a wrestling fan and you haven't seen Mick's show, you owe it to yourself to check it out. His schedule right now is at realmickfoley.com. And, of course, you can always catch him on Twitter at realmickfoley. Did I do enough cheap plugs there, Mick, or do you want to end with a better one?
I'm glad I didn't have to get a single one in. So.
No. I'll tell you. Just to add this, I saw him because he performed at the Shane Helms benefit here in Charlotte. And Mick, you are funnier than hell. I mean, you got a phenomenal sense of humor in your stories. Your punchlines are on the money, and you don't use me in the stories like Ross does.
I can change that if you want.
No, that's okay. You take care. Let's go stick with the one about I call the kids all the time.
All right, I like that one, man.
Love you, man. Thanks, Mick.
Pleasure.
Woo!
I think we'll keep that rating at number one for you.
Okay, man. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Rick.
All the ladies love Slick Rick. You know they love Wooooo Nation. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back.
Introducing Play.it, a podcast network like no other. From award-winning news programming and #1 sports brands to entertainment and business leaders, Play.it is delivering storytelling at its best.
We're going to be having conversations with newsmakers and culture shapers.
I will be talking mostly about fashion and how I've been marketing all my life.
Tech, culture, and entrepreneurship.
Everything in the world of sports entertainment and wrestling and beyond.
Hear what you've been missing at Play.it.
The greatest talker in the history of the business is behind the mic once again. This is Wooooo Nation with Ric Flair.
Well, another home run podcast, buddy.
Thank you.
What do you think?
I think he's great, and I think it's fabulous. And when I say it's the truth, it's hard to be friends in this business. You got to look past the obstacles and not read the internet, and you got to be able to get along with the promoters at all times.
Don't get caught up in the BS.
Don't get caught up in the BS. And you just, at the end of the day, you just got to look at it for what it is. And, we're just two guys at the end of the day trying to make $1,
Yeah.
And that guy, I swear to God, we didn't talk about this. His health right now is he's really
he's hurting.
Concussion-wise. I mean, he can't even you can't go near him now. I mean, medically, he's not clear to do anything. But he put his body through more crap. When they asked me at one day in one of those matches with him, I said, I have to just try it one time. I mean, because I never fell off a cage or anything like that. That one where he went through the cage and his teeth went through his lip. And you got to hear him tell the story. With Undertaker, I mean, they had some matches that were really you're never going to see that again.
So when did you first hear about him and Terry Funk doing the death matches in Japan? Is that something you even heard about? That was like 95.
I didn't hear about that. I heard they were doing it with ECW.
Yeah.
Before he came back.
Well, the stuff in Japan was another level. They were doing exploding barbed wire and all kinds of craziness.
I believe that. I believe that Terry will do anything, and Mick will too. But, I mean, what I hate to see is Mick. I don't even think Mick's 50 years old, did it? He might be just 50. I mean, he's fragile. He's put his body through a lot. You know what I mean? And my hat's off to him. I mean,
and he did it regardless of the size of the crowd.
Exactly. He was another guy like me. And I hated wrestling an hour in front of 150 people, but I had to. I just, it was my job, and and I wanted the job. And if I take the responsibility of wanting the job, I got to do it. And but it's not fun wrestling an hour in front of 150 people when the biggest thing they make noise about is me pushing referee.
Right. I remember you telling me that story.
Yeah, true story. I invented that.
So I know,
cheap heat.
I know that we had to go. He was running out of time. But were you there when he lost his ear with Vader?
I was. And I would have brought that up today, too, because I told him, I said, it's a little crowd. It's a little building. Don't go out there and kill yourself. He comes back, and they're carrying his ear.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's another time that he wasn't mad at me, but I just said, it's not worth it. We had a little crowd. He's wrestling Leon.
Right. And Vader in Germany.
And he did that bump very similar to the Dory Funk Jr. where he'd catch his head between
the top and middle. Yeah.
It's very it's a bump I could never get, and I wouldn't think Mick was the kind of wrestler that could do that bump, but he could. But it tore his ear off. And we're in Germany, and, it wasn't life-threatening by any means, but it was nothing you wanted to see.
He lost a damn ear. I mean, that's a big deal.
No, I know, but I'm saying, nowadays you watch these hockey players and they lose a ear and they sew it back on and go out and play the next year.
Right.
Yeah, but it was, I just felt terrible for him because, I don't mind cutting myself, but I don't want to lose a ear, you know what I mean?
Yeah, where else do you hear Ric Flair say, if I could just get to the sword? You only hear that type of stuff right here on Woo Nation.
As I've said, as I admit, as my abilities decreased, my inclination to bleed and entertain became much more prevalent.
There you go. More insight.
Woo!
Next week on Woo Nation, man.
Yeah.
I don't know how we're going to top that one.
Well, we're going to possibly be talking to Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
All right. Let's do it. See you next week.
There's something for every sports fan on CBSLocalSports.com. Watch live radio shows and original video programming while reading national articles from some of the best writers in the country. Visit CBSLocalSports.com today.